economies, and what do they need to prosper? They need good jobs, infrastructure, affordable housing, and a clean, innovative energy infrastructure for the future. So we like to think of ourselves as the Swiss Army knife of state government. We have a lot of tools that we can use to help communities and regional economies.
The big funds that you just mentioned, if I heard you right, there's the Housing Trust Fund, and then there's the Public Works.
The Public Works account and the CURB, the Community Economic Revitalization Board, those funds come from the legislature, and the boards are appointed by the governor, but we support them. So we help actually administer the program. A brand new program created this year is the Office of Broadband, and the Public Works Board will assist with the funds that the legislature is putting into accessible, affordable broadband across the state.
Okay, well, a lot to talk about, a lot to chew through in the next hour. Let's start with something that just seems so, especially given the name commerce, and because we are the most trade-dependent state in the nation, we often hear. Let's start with something that's very much top of mind and in the news, and that is the tariffs. The trade wars that are going on, and just the impact to a state like ours that is so trade dependent, so ag heavy. I know that your agency has run the numbers and taking all of so we impose tariffs, and then there are counter tariffs or retaliatory tariffs on our products.
Yes.
So the number that your agency has come up with is $520 million, or a 20% decline compared to pre-tariff time periods. But why don't you sort of, again, in your own words, explain what has been the impact of these tariffs and counter-tariffs?
Well, I think I would start by saying I believe that the problem that the Trump administration has defined as unfair trade practices of China, not respecting intellectual property, that's a real problem. And we acknowledge that. The solution of this sort of tit-for-tat tariff war is very damaging, especially to Washington State. I like to say we're very trade-driven. We, of course, with the ports and with the kinds of products that we have, not just agriculture, you think apples and cherries and wheat. I mean, vast majority of our wheat is exported, but also ultrasound equipment, seafood, the impact of steel and aluminum tariffs works its way through the economy. So we are just starting to see the impact of trade we used to have with China literally going away. No wheat going to China. Now, some of that wheat will find its way to another market, but trade relationships that are built up over a long period of time can be damaged and undermined, and it can be a long-term negative impact. So we're very concerned about that, as well as the fact that the cost of the products that tariffs are put on products that we purchase, gets passed on to consumers. So more of your paycheck going, maybe in a hidden way, you don't see it, but it's essentially going to pay tariffs. And usually these things have historically end up in escalation, and what we really need is negotiation and talks with our allies around the world to come up with some new solutions.
Well, help us put in context sort of the numbers that you're running. Is a 20% decline in Washington exports that have been impacted by these retaliatory tariffs? Is that the number you're working off of right now? Is that the hit?
We are, but it's complicated because one big piece of what we export is from our aerospace industry, planes. And that is a dynamic into itself right now. And when you take aerospace out, you still have significant impacts. And as I said, it might look smaller across the whole economy, but then there'll be these very specific parts of the economy like seafood and ultrasound equipment and clearly our agricultural exports that are dramatically affected. Now, you might not see all of the effects In the short run, there's an agriculture aid program that is sending payments to farmers across the country to help make up for the negative impact on the effects of wheat and soybeans not being sold. But ultimately, those products need a market, and the farmers will tell you they want trade, not aid.
Let me ask you about by way of an example. I think that you've mentioned seafood, and I think unprocessed seafood it popped up in the list. I'm wondering, is it geoducks, for instance, which we have traditionally exported from here?
It is, but it's also across the spectrum. And the other thing to think about is our ports take a lot of products from the rest of the country. So there's a lot of economic activity that's generated from the ports up and down the state as well. And the ports are also being very much affected by this trade situation. And they've been investing in their infrastructure in order to compete with ports north and south of us. And now there's a lot of uncertainty there as well.
Is there less shipping going on because of this?
Absolutely. In certain parts of the economy, there's less shipping happening. Wood products, for example, would be one.
You mentioned that the problem statement, that you can agree with the Trump administration that there is a problem. You don't like the solution. Is there, though, an argument to be made for the tariffs maybe not being your chosen method of addressing this, but maybe not as damaging as the naysayers say they are? Because, look, the economy is doing well. Our economy continues to do well. It's something the governor touted when he was running for president, the strength of Washington's economy. We have low unemployment. I mean, is there positive news here, or is there this isn't as bad as it could be?
I think that there's a consensus that this is a dangerous situation and it's an unstable situation, and you see that reflected in the stock market, and you certainly see it if you talk to people directly engaged with exporting their products. And the question is there a better way to address it? And I think there clearly is. But it means working with allied nations and coming up with negotiated solutions, or coming up with tactics that countries could agree on together. Unfortunately, we're in a situation where at the same time we're looking at China as a problem. The government has also, the Trump administration has sort of picked fights with Mexico and Canada and with Europe. And so you end up in a situation where we're often looking at our trade situation as if there's a winner and a loser.